thing we're driving.
The fully electric Audi Q8 e-tron range.
After India's spectacular G20 victory, the focus now back on domestic politics. The next big thing, Parliament special session. From Uniform Civil Code to One Nation, One Poll.
Dr. M. Thambidurai.
The Constitution.
From OBC quota to women's reservation.
हिंदुस्तान की सेना.
Massive suspense over session agenda. What's up Modi government's sleeve? We decode on 5 Live.
The G20 is done. All the fervor surrounding India's big international flex is now behind us. And even though that continues to be a big story, the next big stop is the special session of Parliament. The one-week countdown has begun. Next Monday is when it opens. And I'm going to tell you about all the big theories that are out there over what precisely this new special session that's been called by the Modi government is all about. Because the truth is, viewer, most of the government doesn't really know. But we're still going to speculate, and I'm going to tell you the likelihood of a couple of new things that have come to our attention. I'm Shiv, this is 5 Live. These are the headlines. Tamil Nadu's ruling party continues its tirade against the Hindu religion. DMK MP A. Raja calls Hinduism a menace for the world, says Hinduism is synonymous with casteism. The Sanatana Dharma row escalates. Tamil Nadu minister says opposition has backed the Sanatan remark. BJP claims the India alliance formed to attack Sanatan Dharma. Protesters put shoes on Stalin's pictures as a protest. No relief for Telugu Desam Party chief Chandrababu Naidu. His plea for house arrest rejected. This after all top TDP leadership placed under house arrest following a statewide bandh in Andhra. Uddhav Thackeray drops massive Ayodhya Godhra parallel, says Ram temple may lead to Godhra-like incident, claims Ram devotees may face Godhra-like fate. Apple gears up for the biggest launch event of the year. The upcoming iPhone 15 launch becomes even more special for Indian users, as for the first time, made in India iPhones will be launched. In 6 days from now, a mysterious special session of Parliament has been called by the Modi government. In 7 days from now, the country's brand new Parliament building will be in session for the first time. That is September the 19th is when the new building of Parliament that has been inaugurated earlier this year by the government, by the Prime Minister, will have all members of Parliament in it for the first time in an active session, even though this time it's a special session. It's the first time you will see all our members of Parliament inside that special session. But the point is, nobody, apart from the Prime Minister, perhaps the Home Minister, and maybe just a handful of others, actually knows what the agenda is for this special session. Viewer, the G20 is behind us, and now our focus shifts to domestic politics and specifically the special session of Parliament that comes up next Monday, that is September the 18th. So what is the agenda for this special session? You've already seen angry debates happen over why the opposition is being kept in the dark over this crucial issue. What is going to be discussed? What is the debate? Why this mystery? Why this suspense? Well, I cannot claim to know anything further than what most people do, especially at a time when most of the Modi government has no clue what the agenda is in this session. But there are, viewer, 6 key theories that are doing the rounds, including 2 additional ones that have just dropped that I'm going to be breaking down for you right here on 5 Live. Let's begin with some of those theories. I first want to list them all out for you, and then we'll talk about the likelihood or unlikelihood of each of them. Number 1 theory is uniform civil code. Now, that's a buzz that's been doing the rounds for a long time. There's been a build-up as far as uniform civil code is concerned. So that becomes theory number 1. Theory number 2 is the women's reservation bill. This is also something that's come in for a lot of chatter, and there is an expectation that this might be a game-changer bill introduced by the government in this special session of Parliament. Theory number 3. The use of the word Bharat instead of India by the government in the run-up to and during the G20 has led to a great deal of speculation and political backlash over the use of Bharat by the government. The opposition says this is something that should not be done. So is India's name being changed to Bharat? As I've showed you on this show before, I don't think so, but that's one of the theories doing the rounds. Theory number 4, the one nation, one poll theory. Could a bill be introduced on one nation, one poll? Remember, the government has ordered a high-level panel to look at this issue headed by former President Ramnath Kovind. But that's also a theory doing the rounds. Very interesting new theories that have dropped now that I want to introduce to you is theory number 5, which is the OBC quota. Could there be a big announcement on OBC quota leading into election season in the big states and then 2024? That's a very, very big new theory that is now doing the rounds as far as the special session is concerned. And finally, theory number 6 is a long-expected bill on the criminal law overhaul. This was announced a few months ago by the government. New names, certain changes and upgrades to India's criminal procedure and Indian Penal Code. Will that also be a part of the special session? So all of these things have happened right now in terms of chatter, speculation, expectation, politics as well. But nobody knows. Let me categorically say that nobody knows for sure which one of them, or if any of them, are actually going to be part of this special session. Let's go to theory number 1. Uniform Civil Code is the first theory that has done the rounds. And I want to bring in India Today's Pallavi Saha, who's going to stay with me on this show to help me decide likely, unlikely, possible, very impossible. Those are the 4 words that Pallavi is going to use when she gives us her answer. Pallavi, Uniform Civil Code is perhaps one of the first things that came to people's minds as a theory when this special session was called. What are you hearing? Possible, not possible, unlikely? What are you hearing?
Unlikely is the word here, because I've spoken to my sources and those who are in the know of what this special session is about. And remember, Shiv, that there are only very few people right now within the government machinery who are fully aware as to what this special session of Parliament is about. And what they're telling me is that it's unlikely that the Uniform Civil Code bill will be presented before Parliament during this special session, which is to start on the 18th of September. What they're saying is that the 22nd Law Commission has solicited views from across stakeholders and sections of society and the public, and that process is underway. So it's unlikely that the special session is about UCC, Shiv.
Okay, very interesting. So Pallavi says it's unlikely. Now let's go to theory number 2. Theory number 2 is the women's reservation bill. Now, it's been a turbulent year so far, where the government has been put on the mat on different issues. The terrible things that have happened in Manipur and elsewhere have put the government on the back foot as far as women's safety is concerned. So one section believes that the women's reservation bill could be a game changer bill that is brought in during this session of Parliament, and it has been something that has been asked for a very, very long time, and it could, politically speaking, take the wind out of the opposition sails on the issue of, empowering women. Poulomi, women's reservation bill also doing the rounds. What do you think?
Again, on that as well, unlikely was the word that was used as well with women's reservation bill. Of course, it has picked up a lot of steam after Kavita, MLC from Telangana, and KCR's daughter picked it up as well. She's written to leaders of all political parties and urged them to include this in terms of their demands. Remember, because Sonia Gandhi wrote a charter of 9 demands to the Prime Minister saying these are the issues that should be discussing. Since you've not told us the agenda, here's what we think should be discussed. She did not name women's reservation bill. Kavita wrote to all the political party leaders, including Mrs. Sonia Gandhi, and said that please include women's reservation bill. So there's a lot of chatter around women's reservation bill, but again, very unlikely because the consensus within the BJP also is lacking as far as the 33% reservation for women is concerned in Parliament.
Okay, I'm very much enjoying this game of elimination that Poulomi and I are playing, because this narrows things down and gives our viewers a really, really nice and focused view before that special session starts. Poulomi, let's move to theory number 3 now. This is something that the government kicked up a real storm about. This was with the use of the word Bharat instead of India, whether it was G20 invitations, whether it was notifications used during the BRICS summit or the ASEAN summit, or during the G20 itself, where Bharat was the Prime Minister's nameplate. The buzz has been that, is India going to change its name to Bharat? Is the government going to move a bill towards that? Poulomi, I personally don't think so. I think the government has just been trying to popularize the use of the word Bharat, and I don't think there's any official, bill that is going to be moved as such. Is that what you're hearing as well?
Again, yes, that's exactly what, government sources are telling me as I'm speaking to them, whether that's possible. And they're saying, what sort of constitutional amendment are you speaking about? Because Bharat is there in the Constitution. Article 1 of the Constitution says India, that is Bharat. Could this be a switchover? Bharat, that is India? Again, the government, at least sources that I'm speaking to, doesn't feel the need so. What you've rightly said is that the government feels the need to popularize the usage of Bharat over India, and hence you saw a lot of it being used at the G20 summit, how the Prime Minister's name placard read, and otherwise as well throughout the summit in very little details. Instead of India, we used Bharat. But that is exactly what the government wants to do, give one more precedence over the other. But what they're saying is that we don't require a constitutional amendment for the same because it's already in the Constitution. But as we've discussed in the past, this was one of the theories that kind of picked up a lot of more steam than the others, simply because it was on the 18th of September, in the past, when in fact the Constituent Assembly debated the draft Constitution and adopted Article 1 of the Constitution, which again had debated a lot of variations for how we're going to refer to India or Bharat in the Article 1. And this is the date, 18th of September 2023, when indeed the new session, I beg your pardon, the special session of Parliament begins.
Okay, very interesting. 3 theories done, 3 to go, Poulomi. Let's go to theory number 4 now. So the 3 theories we've talked about so far, all unlikely, if not totally, not happening in this special session. Theory number 4 is another big one that dropped out of nowhere, and that's one nation, one poll. A lot of politics, Poulomi, has happened over one nation, one poll. 3 or 4 days of angry debates have taken place, but no word from the government itself, even though the government in the past has talked about the benefits of one nation, one poll. A panel has been formed to look into this, headed by, former President Ramnath Kovind, Poulomi. So one wonders whether ONOP could be one of the things on the agenda in this session of Parliament.
Again, categorically denied by sources that I've spoken to. Like you said, a committee has just been formed. Former President Ramnath Kovind is heading that committee. It's an 8-member panel. Of course, Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary chose to withdraw from that panel. So currently 7 members. What sources are telling me is that they estimate that this committee could take at least 3 years to come up with its report. It's going to be a long, drawn-out process where they'll speak to a lot of stakeholders. The government itself has said that if at all it has to move forward with this agenda, which it wants to move forward with. It has to seek the political consensus of, state chief ministers, governors, all political parties as well, before they finalize as to how, they're going to make this happen, the modalities of it in terms of state elections, in terms of Lok Sabha elections. So there's a lot that needs to be discussed. At least 5 different articles of the Constitution will have to be amended for this to become possible. You have to think about the resources. Holding elections with as many BVPAT machines, EVMs across the country at the same time, huge expenditure in terms of, deployment of security forces, poll officials. Again, all of these nitty-gritties need to be discussed. So it's going to be a while before this committee indeed comes up with a report, Shiv.
Okay, so two theories are unlikely. 2 theories are categorically not happening. And you've got theory number 5, which we're coming to right now, which is also a very interesting one, Polomi, which hasn't been, discussed or debated before. But this is something that our political bureau has been picking up over the last few days. And that pertains to the possibility of a quota announcement, an OBC quota announcement. Polomi, this would be big if it happened, because we're just months away from, a large cycle of elections where something like this would be, would have a huge impact as well. The many things, politically speaking, that have been happening over the last few weeks and months, leading into the Karnataka elections and thereafter, have led one to believe that some big announcement concerning OBCs, possibly even a quota, is one of the theories.
Well, for this particular theory, Shiv, I've not got a categorical no. But, the fact is, Justice Rohini Commission just submitted that report on the 1st of August to the President, after which, of course, it has reached the Ministry of Social Justice, and they are going to review what the committee report actually states. Again, it's a very tedious process over years of work put together, after which the Commission actually came up with this report. You're talking about subcategorization of OBCs in order to ensure, that there is the right kind of, benefits that are meted out, and of course, in terms of government schemes as well. So the government will take some amount of time to study this report before indeed it brings this into some sort of a fruition stage. That is going to take some time. But again, I've not received a categorical no for this at the moment, Shiv.
Okay, very interesting. Not a categorical no, not a categorical yes, but not a categorical no is even more tantalizing, because we are still speculating here. Finally, theory number 6, Polomi, and to our viewers, is the bill on the criminal law overhaul. Remember, new names for the laws, certain amendments to some of those laws, and a completely new set of laws as far as India is concerned. Out with the old and in with the new. Before I go to Polomi, we actually have a scoop on that to answer this question, and then I'll get Polomi in. This is the breaking news we're getting right now on the criminal law overhaul by the government. The standing panel report, standing committee, the parliamentary standing committee report will be presented on the issue of our criminal law overhaul in the winter session of Parliament, and not during this special session of Parliament that starts in 1 week from now. So, Polomi, that appears to answer that question, that theory number 6, criminal law overhaul, won't be happening in the special session, but in the winter session.
That's right, Shiv. We're getting that information from our sources that we just spoke to. In fact, just before the show, we spoke to a couple of sources who are part of the Standing Committee of Home Affairs, which is basically studying these 3 bills at this point of time. And there are many domain experts, including former IPS officers, who are appearing before the Standing Committee in order to, of course, study these 3 bills. Remember that Amit Shah, of course, introduced the bill in Parliament on the last day of the monsoon session of Parliament. And then, of course, the bill was immediately sent to the Standing Committee on Home Affairs. So some of the members, we're told, immediately, because, these meetings have been happening back to back. Yesterday, today, there are already 4 meetings that have happened. Today is the 5th meeting. So some very curious members actually asked, are you pushing through, are you rushing through this bill? Asked the chair that, because you want to bring this bill in the special session of Parliament. And they were told, no, this bill is intended for the winter session of Parliament, not the special session.
Okay, so unlikely, categorical no, no categorical no, and categorical no is our report card for all the speculation leading up to this parliament session. Paulomi, you and I will be back here next week to see what all we got right. I'm sure we got it getting everything right because this is India's #1 political team that's going to be taking you into this special session of Parliament. And even though we don't categorically know what's happening, we can tell you that we will be the first to report it when it happens. Paulomi, appreciate it. Thanks very much for those sharp answers here on 5 Live. We're taking a very quick break. On the other side, politics has erupted over the new uniform for Parliament staff ahead of this special session. The opposition has slammed the BJP for not revealing the agenda for the special session.
Elections, when all the parties are gearing up for elections here, and we see that this issue has come up while in the case was, the TDP's claiming case was registered long ago, and now when G20 is the main focus, this issue has been brought. So what do you say, madam? Is it a political vendetta that you can say, or is it, what do you call it?
No, definitely, just as we had raised our voice against the procedural aspects that had happened when they were arresting Sri Chandrababu Naidu ji, in the sense that they had not given him a notice, they did not take an explanation from him, his name was not in the FIR. It was later through a memo that his name was added into the FIR, and so there were great procedural lapses which BJP had questioned. But the rest of it, I think, since it's sub judice, and I think law will definitely, like for example, when Modi ji was the Chief Minister of Gujarat, and even Amit Shah ji, they were also at that point of time, Congress was in power in the center, and they were called for interrogation. I think Modi ji must have gone a dozen times there, but every time, even as the Chief Minister of AP, he sat through patiently, he gave his explanation, and Amit Shah ji was also kind of not allowed to even step into Gujarat at that point of time, but they proved themselves. So there is a procedure, and procedurally, I think they will have to face it.
Hello everyone, this is Anita Brito in conversation with the one and only Shyam Kaushal. Hello sir, कैसे हो आप?
हेलो नमस्कार जी।
अभी भी आप कंटिन्यू कर रहे हो और आपके बहुत अच्छे अच्छे लाइनअप्स है, जैसे आपने बोला डंकी है, फिर आपके पास जो बंगाली मूवी है वो भी है,
ये बंगला बंधु। हाँ जी,
प्लीज उसके बारे में थोड़ा इन डेप्थ बात कीजिए, थोड़ा डंकी के बारे में हमें बात कीजिए। इट्स एन ऑल एंड आउट एक्शन फिल्म?
नो, इट इज नॉट ए, देयर इज एक्शन इन इट।
बट मुझे ये जानना है आपसे, ये पर्सनल क्वेश्चन है, आपको सबसे ज्यादा कौन से एक्टर के साथ काम करके मजा है, मुझे ये बताइए।
मैंने अमित जी के साथ काम किया, अमित जी से लेके सभी के साथ जितने भी आगे ना, सभी के साथ काम किया, फिर जो साउथ के भी मोस्टली सुपरस्टार्स उनके साथ भी काम किया, पर आज तक भगवान की दुआ से कभी किसी के साथ इशू नहीं हुआ, कभी कुछ नहीं हुआ, सबसे प्यार ही मिला है। तो मेरा एक मानना होता है, जैसा मैं आज भी ओपनली बोलता हूँ कि पिछले मैं 43 साल में मेरे को कोई बुरा आदमी नहीं मिला, तो मैं कभी सोचता नहीं हूँ कि अगर कुछ कमियां होंगी तो मेरे में होंगी, कोई बुरा आदमी नहीं है कोई भी ऐसा। जब मैं एक्टर्स, मेरे जो छोटे हैं जैसा रणबीर सिंह, रणबीर कपूर, अर्जुन कपूर, उन्होंने मेरे साथ शुरू किया, जब भी मिलते पैर छूते हैं सब बच्चों की तरह। तो आप अगर उनको प्यार देते हो तो आपको सामने से प्यार मिलेगा ही।
On this day next week, India's brand new Parliament building will be used for the first time by our honourable members of Parliament. A building befitting the expanding aspirations, needs and duties of a rising nation, befitting the vibrant democracy that we are. The journey leading up to the opening of our new Parliament building has been riddled with turbulence and politics. First, there were questions over lack of environmental consultations for the project. Then there was politics over construction of the new Parliament building starting during the COVID-19 pandemic. Then there was political anger over the Prime Minister inaugurating the new structure instead of the President of the country. Then there were questions over the date chosen for the inauguration, which coincided with the birth anniversary of Vinayak Savarkar. Then these were all legitimate questions, and I personally don't think asking such questions means an issue is being politicized. Also, in a country that runs on politics, all questions by default mean an issue is being politicized. So I don't think anyone should have a problem with anything being politicized. Let's get that out of the way. Now, the new Parliament building is back in focus now because the government has called a mysterious special session of Parliament. The first day, next Monday, will be the last formal use of the old Parliament building. On the second day of the special session, that is September the 19th, that's Tuesday, 1 week from now, the new Parliament building will be open to our MPs. But as you know, none of our MPs, barring a handful, know what the agenda even is. I would wager that most of the government doesn't know either what this special session is about. And I believe the questions over the suspense are justified. We've seen a lot of anger and debate over the last few days on this subject. All I can say, though, is we will know soon, and until then, we will continue to ask the questions. But I wanted to end by mentioning one final bit of turbulence that sprung up this month over this upcoming special session. It was from the Uddhav Sena, which said holding the special session of Parliament over Ganesh Chaturthi, which falls on September 19th, goes against Hindu sentiments. This comment from virtually every senior leader of the party surprised me a little. I'm now an atheist, but I know enough to know that there couldn't possibly be a more fitting day to open India's new Parliament building than on Ganesh Chaturthi. Ganesh is considered the deity of new beginnings. He is revered across all religions, not just by Hindus, for what he represents in terms of Shubha Arambh and commitment to duty. So how does kicking off the new Parliament on Ganesh Chaturthi hurt Hindu sentiments? This has confused me, especially since in this sentimental democracy of ours, Parliament is the house of the people and the people are God. I would only urge the Uddhav Sena, one of the few India Alliance members, remember, with the spine to call out the hate speech of Udayanidhi Stalin and A. Raja of the DMK, to think about this just a little further. Thanks for listening. Very quick break here on 5 Live. Much more coming up on the other side with Gaurav Sawant.
Let me start by the vision that the Prime Minister had outlined in that interview he did with us, catalyst for a new global order. Do you think in the Delhi declaration that's come out, Minister Hardeep Puri, that objective has been achieved? This declaration signaling India's coming of age at the global arena?
It's not just a question of, what the Prime Minister, I think the Prime Minister was being modest when he said that. What the Prime Minister has succeeded in achieving, or rather the G20 Indian presidency has achieved. It has achieved a document called the New Delhi Declaration through a human-centric approach to development post-COVID and the initiation or the start of a new world order, with a new India being at the center of that. So I endorse what was the content of your question, what the Honourable Prime Minister said, but I think when the Prime Minister spoke to you then, it was still work in progress. Today, you see evidence of that in the New Delhi Declaration.
Can you explain to everyone watching how this corridor between India, the Mideast and Europe will actually work in the real sense? It's a fantastic idea. To be able to bring these countries on board is a huge achievement, but how will it operationalize? What will it really mean on the ground?
I'm probably the wrong person, and I want to be uncharacteristically modest. This is a question which should be addressed to those of my colleagues who will be dealing with the issue. I can tell you that infrastructural cooperation is one thing, and I think the countries of the Middle East, the two countries that you have in mind, the United States, India, they will be able to achieve that. But I want to draw your attention, if you permit, to the Global Biofuels Alliance. I think that is another very major takeaway that you're going to get from this G20. Why? Because biofuels in the years to come will acquire an increasing importance, not only because of the value of global biofuels in the global economy. The IEA says it's worth about $92 billion today. It's going in the direction of $192 billion by the time the 2030 agenda comes. All this will be possible only because for the first time in the history of the biofuels, you have an international arrangement which brings together consumers, producers, other stakeholders, those who do research on it. I mean, you take all the other takeaways from that, plus your corridor, which is going to go through that. I don't want to comment whether that corridor is an answer to some other, some initiative by some others. But, the G20 and the people who are talking about these corridors are anchoring them in realistic, doable, small parts. And that is what it is about. But as I said, I'm probably the wrong minister to be having this conversation with.
Missing ministers' mystery in China. After Chinese foreign minister's disappearance, now the Chinese defense minister is missing. Senior generals drop off the map. Missing mystery shakes up the Chinese government. Top focus on India today.
So what is happening in China? First, the foreign minister Qin Gang went missing. Then two top commanders of the People's Liberation Army, the Strategic Rocket Force, they were purged. And now, for the past 15 days and counting, China's defense minister Li Shangfu hasn't been seen in public. Alarm bells started ringing in the Western world. And then, the US ambassador to Japan, Rahm Emanuel, he compared the Xi Jinping cabinet to an Agatha Christie novel. And then, there were none. But jokes and jibes apart, is everything under control in China, especially at a time when the economy is facing very severe headwinds and President Xi Jinping himself had to ask for stability in the armed forces? This is our top story on India First.
Is all well in Chinese President Xi Jinping's government? There is rising alarm with China's defense minister Li Shangfu missing for the past 14 days. Li Shangfu was last seen in public on August 29 when he addressed the China-Africa Forum in Beijing, according to media reports. There is no official word from Beijing on the whereabouts of the Chinese defense minister, but there is some chatter on Chinese social media about action being taken against the defense minister in connection with corruption-related investigations.
In a country like China, which is so centrally controlled, all this could lead to a great deal of instability And that would be worrisome not only for the people in China itself, but also its neighbors, keeping in view the expansionist policies that China has been following with respect to the territory of its neighbors, as also in the South China Sea.
Such is the curiosity that the US ambassador to Japan, Raham Emanuel, took to social media platform X to post, President Xi's cabinet lineup is now resembling Agatha Christie's novel, and then there were none. First the foreign minister, Qin Gang, goes missing, then the rocket force commanders go missing, and now the defense minister, Li Shangfu, hasn't been seen in public for 2 weeks. Who's going to win this unemployment race? China's youth or Xi's cabinet? Hashtag mystery in Beijing building. The developments are being closely monitored, not just in China's neighborhood, but across the world.
So now we have no news of Li Shangfu being arrested, the current defense minister of China. Earlier, his predecessor Feng He had been arrested. Concurrently, there's news pouring in through social media channels, Chinese social media channels, that Jiang Yushen, a princeling, Xi and Zhang Yu's fathers had served together. He was a confidant, a protege, a favorite of Xi.
And the mystery in Beijing is truly building. The Chinese foreign minister, Qin Gang, seen as a protege of Chinese President Xi Jinping, was last seen in public on June 25. There was a buzz in social media that he had reportedly fathered a child out of wedlock, and his alleged link with a US-based journalist of Chinese origin. But it's not just President Xi's cabinet. Even in the army, the top leadership of the strategic rocket forces has been purged. In August, President Xi replaced 2 top generals of the PLA rocket force responsible for China's nuclear and missile arsenal. Rocket Force Chief General Li Yuchao and his deputy General Liu Guangbin were replaced by a PLA Navy general and a PLA Air Force commander. The 2 purged Rocket Force commanders have reportedly not been seen in public for months, amidst reports of state secrets having been leaked out.
Informational compromise in the nuclear instrument of a 21st century superpower. I would say these are deep dysfunctionalities within the PLA. And Xi is reeling under one crisis after another.
Analysts argue Xi Jinping may be facing major trouble within. In China, President Xi Jinping is known as the chairman of everything. He's the president, he's the chairman of the Central Military Commission and the general secretary of the Chinese Communist Party. But is he completely in control, especially after those considered very close to him have mysteriously gone off the radar, whether it's the defense minister of China or the foreign minister of China or the rocket force commanders who were considered very close to him? Analysts are watching developments in China very closely. With cameraman Deepak Bisht in Delhi, Gaurav Sawant for India Today.
So let's try and make sense of the developments behind the Great Wall. Joining me on India First, on the special edition of India First, are 4 China specialists. I have Professor Brahma Chilani joining me, Professor Shrikant Kondapalli is joining me, Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, and Andrew K.P. Leung joins me on the broadcast. And Professor Chilani, I want to understand from you first, sir, what do you make of Chinese defense minister who hasn't been seen in public for a fortnight and counting?
Gaurav, one should look at the bigger picture. China is the world's largest and longest surviving autocracy. No other autocracy has survived that long in modern history. But now, China is grappling with multiple crises. Anyone who falls foul of its dictator just disappears. It is not just ministers and military generals who disappear. Even business leaders disappear.
Yes,
a classic case was Jack Ma's disappearance. Under the CCP's repressive rule, China has become an Orwellian techno-totalitarian surveillance state. But I think we should also take note of a larger concern. The tightening grip of a dictator without checks and balances and with yes men around him represents a major Chinese weakness. It's a Chinese weakness that could lead to a ruinous miscalculation. Xi Jinping has already made a number of miscalculations that have triggered a global pushback against his regime's neo-imperial ambitions.
Yes.
And in ordering the intrusions into Ladakh in 2020, Xi Jinping seriously miscalculated that China would be able to impose the changed territorial status quo on India as a fait accompli without inviting a robust Indian military response. In fact, through the ongoing military standoff, Xi Jinping is making a permanent enemy of India.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, this is contrary to China's own long-term interests. We can expect more miscalculations by him as he comes under growing pressure.
Interesting you
fact
say.
is that
So he's
under Xi
digging himself
Jinping-
deeper in a hole. Sir,
Yes.
let me also bring in Andrew KP Leung into this conversation. Mr. Leung, first the foreign minister Chin Gang, now the defense minister, Merit in the US ambassador to Japan saying President Xi's cabinet is now like an Agatha Christie novel, and then there were none.
Well, definitely, I think that something is going on inside the Chinese Communist Party, some key positions, in the sense that, for example, one has got a separate case surrounding Chen Gong, who had disappeared earlier, and his job was undertaken by Wang Yi. That is a special case because it involved a foreign country's espionage. Obviously, I mean, the news are coming out because that he was reported to be to have a extramarital affair with a top Chinese journalist who was trained in the United States, and probably he was compromised in terms of espionage. But as far as the latest disappearance is concerned, I think that this harks back to the time of Bo Xilai. You remember before President Xi took over, that was the Bo Xilai affair, and that involved a huge corruption going on. And then, according to the some of the reports, it does point to something happening on that front.
But if I look at it the other way, and let me bring in Professor Kondapalli, if you're referring to Bo Xilai, was it corruption or was it Xi Jinping getting rid of competition? And would he see, the current defense minister as competition? Professor Kondapalli, US ambassador to Japan, Ram Emanuel, a former White House chief of staff, when he says #mystery in Beijing building, how do you look at the Chinese defense minister going missing? Can it be compared to Bo Xilai getting rid of competition or corruption?
If you allow me to speak, Bo Xilai's case is different from Li Shangfu's case. Bo Xilai was a major contender for the general secretary post in 2012.
Yes.
Bo Xilai's father was a commerce minister, Po Yipo, under Deng Xiaoping in the 1950s. And Po Xilai and Xi Jinping studied in the similar schools in Beijing. Beijing used to have in the 1950s the schools for the party cadets children and the military cadets children.
Yes.
So in those schools, there used to be a lot of fights, and Po Xilai, Xi Jinping, in those 50s, that is quite early, when they are pretty young, in their secondary school and onwards. So there was a fight since then, and many cases were implicated on Ku Kai Lai, the wife of Po Xilai, when they were in Chongqing. And Po Xilai was implicated on a number of other cases. For example, Ku Kai Lai, his wife, was implicated in the murder,
in a murder case. Absolutely, sir.
Journalist, a lawyer, and Po Xilai's son Po Yipo married Liu Shaoqi's grandson, Liu Yuan is China Development Bank chairman.
So you don't see a competition, you don't see a parallel. But I want to come to the current case. What do you make of the defense minister missing, sir?
Well, the previous defense minister also was missing during the Doklam crisis as well as during Galwan crisis.
Yes.
They have been removed for other reasons. Once you see in the press that they are under investigation, it means generally that they are into corruption cases and others. And Chinese military is spending $350 billion. There is huge corruption there in the PLA. And if they are going to fight with barbed wire fencing bats and nail-studded sticks in Galwan, where is this $300 billion going in the Chinese military?
Okay.
So there is a lot of corruption, and many of them were implicated in this.
So is this a
vice chairman
corruption
of the
purge?
Central
General
District
Kulkarni, let me, Professor Saab, if I could also bring in General Kulkarni into this conversation. Is it just a purge, these allegations of corruption that, Professor Kondapalli also refers to in defense deals? The grapevine has it, apparently, even some nuclear secrets were compromised. This would reflect very poorly, General Kulkarni, not just on the rocket force, the leadership of the rocket force, but also on President Xi Jinping, the force behind the strategic rocket force.
Gaurav, thank you. Besides all this, he has even detained 4 high-ranking officials who were associated with the aviation industry, with the aerospace science, also the northern industries, and some amongst them have been very, very close to Xi Jinping, and they were being his personal picks. And one amongst them is the ex-secretary of the Chinese Communist Party. So you can well imagine, I think Xi Jinping is feeling very insecure, primarily because of, obviously, he has promised his people that he would be able to help them economically, provided they surrendered some of their rights, which is not working out well. So the economic downturn is playing, unemployment is a problem, and that is where Xi Jinping is on the back foot. And whenever China is on the back foot diplomatically, you will find them on the front foot militarily. And in this context, if you see the Canadian and the US warship passing through the Taiwan Strait just when they're conducting exercises. And I think so, on a little off-the-cuff, Li Shangfu, the defense minister, made an off-the-cuff remark saying that the Americans are using Taiwan as wanting to contain China. Well, that will not work out, and we are prepared. And at the time, probably Xi Jinping thought that the defense minister had spoken more than what he should at the Afro-Asian conference. And that probably may have led to Li Shangfu being almost missing, or maybe subsequently may turn out either may not be well or dismissed or whatever it be. But Xi Jinping is definitely lack of trust, feels on the back foot, is not very comfortable. He's not finding people with the same ideological alignment along with him, and therefore strict warning being given. And that mandate from heaven, which the Chinese talk about, seems to be now in more of a difficult situation.
Professor
because
Chilani,
he's promising them.
Okay, Professor Chilani, is that also your appreciation? Is Xi Jinping completely in control with this purge? Is he ruling with an iron hand, or is there merit? Some are arguing that those close to Xi are being purged. What's happening in China, sir?
If you look at his track record since he came to power in 2012, he has used an anti-corruption drive as a cover to get rid of people that he didn't like. That has been one common pattern in the last 11 years of his rule. He uses this anti-corruption cover to purge the party of rivals, to purge the military of admirals and generals. The number of admirals and generals that he has purged is astounding. The number is just astounding. But more broadly, the fact is that under Xi Jinping, China is turning into its own worst enemy. For example, China is picking a grand geostrategic fight with all of the world's other major powers except Russia. This is perhaps unprecedented in modern world history. Joe Biden recently warned that when bad folks have problems, they do bad things. He was referring to China. And a reminder of that, Beijing 2 weeks ago released a new national map.
Yes.
Showing inside China vast swaths of Indian land and the territories of several other neighbors, including tiny Bhutan. So this illustrates the bad things Beijing is capable of doing under Xi Jinping. And I think
So
that
which means
in the
is
coming
the
months
worst-
and coming years, we're going to see more bad things from Beijing.
And that was the apprehension, sir. That's the apprehension. Andrew K.P. Leung, is that also your appreciation? Recently, there was a report that implied that elders in the Communist Party in that annual meeting severely reprimanded President Xi Jinping for his poor handling of the economy and destroying China's ties with the world. How do you see that, sir?
Well, I think there's a danger of mixing this anti-corruption campaign with the popularity of Xi Jinping, which has been confirmed by recent studies of the Harvard Kennedy School and also last year's or early this year's finding of the Edelman Trust Barometer based in New York and the IPSOS Research Center based in Paris.
No, but the economy is facing very severe headwinds.
Can I finish,
the
please?
elders,
Can I finish?
Yes, sir. But I want to stay on the
finish,
current
please?
issue, sir.
If I'm not allowed to finish, I would disappear from this program, okay? Don't invite me then.
I mean, you might be nervous. You don't have to lose your cool, sir.
Can I finish?
Yes, please.
You don't allow me to finish. I'll just log off if you don't allow me to finish, okay?
No, feel free to log off, but please stay on facts, sir. Please stay on facts. I don't want you to rattle off statistics. I want you to tell me, is Xi Jinping in control? Your economy is facing headwinds. What about the opposition that he's facing, sir?
Well, listen, I'm quoting the Harvard Kennedy School study. It's a fact. You can Google that. I'm quoting the Edelman Trust Barometer finding. You can Google that. It was the beginning of this year. I'm quoting the Ipsos Research Center based in Paris, IPSOS.
Well, a lot has happened from the beginning of this year to what is happening right now, Andrew K.P. Leung. But be that as it may, Professor Kondapalli, since she is chairman of everything, in your appreciation, can he be reprimanded? Was that report an exaggeration? Is there any threat whatsoever to Xi Jinping's leadership? I have the last 1 minute of on the show. Professor Kondapalli.
Well, thank you. I'll leave.
Well, General Secretary Xi Jinping has absolute majority in the Politburo and Politburo Standing Committee. So he cannot be impeached as you are suggesting.
Okay. Fair enough. I will let that be the last word on the show, at least for today. But what next for Xi Jinping? The warning signs are all there. When bad people are in trouble, bad things happen. We'll be tracking that story very, very closely. To all my guests, many thanks for joining me. A quick break. News and updates continue on India Today. Stay with us.
The British Prime Minister and his wife have been setting some serious couple goals during their time in New Delhi. This was Rishi Sunak and Akshata Murthy at the Akshardham temple on Sunday morning, huddled together under a red umbrella. An image that reminded many of the iconic Bollywood couple Raj Kapoor and Nargis. The picture that is now going viral came a day after this photograph of the British First Lady fixing Rishi Sunak's tie on the plane broke the internet. The power couple has been painting the capital red since they arrived for the G20 summit. Akshata Murthy has also been making headlines for her fashion choices. A brocade floral print full-length skirt and a white shirt when she landed. A fuchsia dress for a casual interaction at the British Council, a fun pair of red and white striped pants for a dinner date with her husband, and a lavender shift dress with puffed sleeves and matching pumps for a day out with the First Ladies. Rishi Sunak and Akshata Murthy looked picture perfect as they arrived for the G20 dinner, hosted by the President of India, Draupadi Murmu. With their Desi roots that neither of them are afraid of flaunting, Rishi Sunak and Akshata Murthy have won India over. Bureau Report, India Today.
Forecast now. Delhi, maximum 36 and minimum 26 degrees. Mumbai, maximum 29 and minimum 27 degrees. Kolkata, maximum 33 and minimum 26 degrees. Bangalore, maximum 29 and minimum 20 degrees. Chennai, maximum 33 and minimum 27 degrees. Hyderabad, maximum 30 and minimum 22 degrees.
Kerala's public health. All political parties traveling from different parts.
Armed with facts,
Looking at political back.
she takes the news by its horns.
Do you think the future of these students are not hampered?
Fierce, bold and direct, setting the tone for the biggest stories. From every corner and every angle. Expect nothing but the unfiltered truth.
News first, niceties later. Watch me, Nabila Jamal, on India Today.